Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening in the stars above for this very busy sort of weekend, astrologically and human design speaking. And I'll share everything that's happening for us this week or this weekend. And yet I have to go backwards in time. Let's time travel a bit, right? When I hurt myself back on December 17th, I didn't do any shows after that for a while. And so I never got to talk to you all about a shift that was happening in the nodes, the north and the south node, the axis that really determines the direction that we're moving in and what it is that we have to let go of, right? South node, let's go. The north node we're moving toward, right? We want more of the north node. We want less of the south node. And so every few months, there is a shift in that node in terms of human design, while the nodes remain in one sign for, about 18 months in astrology. In human design, they move through different gates about every 3 months or so. And on December 23rd, they changed gates. So I was thinking about this, like I woke up thinking about the human design mandala this morning. And I was just, it was in my mind, right, that we really needed to have this chat. And the reason this is so important to us at this point in time is that the two gates that represent now our north node destiny and our south node karma, or what we need to let go of, are part of a channel. They form the channel of community, and that very channel is what is going to be shifting next year when we go through the human design evolution of the solar plexus, but also when we switch from the Incarnation Cross that has guided humanity for the last 400 years, and we move into the new one. So the gates now, the gate 37 in the North Node, which is called the Gate of Peace, or sometimes called the Gate of Family, and the gate 40, the South Node, where we call that the Gate of Restoration. It has also been known by other names, but I really think of this gate, this channel, as being about family and how we rest within our energies. And I'm going to show you a human design chart in just a minute, and I'm also going to show you a human design mandala so you can kind of get this pictured in your mind. But together, these two gates, the 37 and the 40, they form what's called the channel of community. So for the next foreseeable future, I believe until May 13th of 2026 now, we will be guided by this particular channel in our human design as we collectively evolve. And this channel has been the heart of the Incarnation Cross of Planning since the mid-1600s, 400 years ago. And that global cycle has really shaped how human civilization has unfolded over those last 400 years. And that cycle officially completes in 2027, which means that this is the final time that, in this cycle anyway, that this particular channel will be part of the nodal axis, at least for another 20 years or so. So what we're witnessing now is not a sudden ending or a sudden, change. It's the long unwinding, if you will, of a world that we built on agreements, as this channel was also called the channel of the bargain, or the channel of agreements. Now, in the beginning, back 400 years ago, as we began to evolve in toward this particular channel, or this part of the Incarnation Cross, it was really important to determine the rules and the laws of society. And because things were changing so fast, right? It was just it was the age of the Renaissance, and then that was the pre-dawn to the Industrial Revolution. And so many things were about to launch, right, in our world, that we needed the organization, we needed the planning, we needed the administration. right? Which led to things like bureaucracies, to institutions, to governments, and all of the changes that were wrought in this 400-year period of time. Now, the 37 and the 40 together, they describe a sort of social contract that we have with one another. It says something like, I contribute to the whole, me as an individual contributing to the whole, and in return, I am supported by the whole. So you see the part, you as part of the whole, and the whole not being the same without each particular part. So it really showed how we are all interconnected. And this is the energetic backbone energy of families and tribes. And the eventual, if we look at this time frame, the eventual building of nations and governments and forms of governance like communism, like socialism, like democracy and authoritarianism, all those have their backbone in that particular channel. It also held the backbone for work for pay structures. So consequently, we see our move during this last 400 years from an agrarian society where, you built crops or you farmed crops, and those crops then became part of kingdoms that then gave you some income, to situations where you actually held a job and you went to work and your employer paid you, and then you decided from there what you did with your money. It also lent itself to governments and institutions and social safety nets within this same 400-year period of time. The idea of social security, of medical insurances, and all those type of things had their early beginnings and then eventually, form into what we know today. And then concepts like loyalty, like duty and obligation became a part of the experience in our human evolution during this time. Now, for centuries, this channel has held this particular question. If I show up and do my part, will I be taken care of? And for a long time, that agreement mostly worked, right? As it started to unfold, of course, there were the wonky things that happened in the beginning. And then as we go further, that begins to really work, or at least it appeared to be working. Okay. Now, let's talk about the South Node, because the South Node is what we are leaving behind, right? So the South Node is in gate 40, and this is what we're releasing. And with the South Node now in gate 40, the gate called restoration in quantum human design, the collective is confronting exhaustion, right? We're confronting that. And the gate 40 is sitting on the will center. Let me see if I can bring up really quickly my screen and share that with you so you can see where these are, so you can picture it in your mind. And if you have your own human design chart with you, that would be handy, so you can see whether or not you have this gate, these two gates, or either gate, or the channel defined in your chart. So you'll see the gate 40 is right here on the will center, and the will center is is willpower. Right? So the gate 40 is the gate of willpower. It is the gate of working and responsibility and providing for others. But in its shadow level, it is about burnout. It is about overwork. It is about carrying too much of the load by yourself. And it is also about staying loyal long after the contract has been broken. Sometimes this channel was also called the channel of marriage. Right? Marriage being a bargain, being an agreement between, and the initial phases, two families, right? You have my daughter, I give you cows, whatever it is, the dowry kind of concept, that what have you. Now, collectively, this gate 40 looks like people questioning work structures, right? Remember, we're releasing this. So we're looking now at work structures. And you see this very much in the different generations, right? Where the younger generations at this point, they're questioning, why do I need to work 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day for 5 days a week or whatever that work schedule is, and spend only 2 days out of that whole week where I can rest or relax or do things that are fun? This whole questioning of the work ethic. And older generations, of course, looking at the younger generations and thinking they're lazy. But the they're the sign of, they're the symptom of this gate 40 that's saying, working yourself to exhaustion and getting to retirement only to die and not really ever enjoying your life has got to change. Now, I don't know that they've got that in their heads and that's what they're saying, but it's certainly the symptom of this particular evolutionary 400-year period that is now getting ready to change. Now, there's also resentment that's been built over these 400 years up towards systems that demand without giving back, right? Employers that are creating havoc in the environment and creating situations where people fall ill because of the work schedule or the toxins in the environment, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's just one little piece of that. But then there's also this collapse of trust in institutions that no longer restore what they take. So we see a lot of flack in the world at the moment against the different institutions, the different organizations, and the different bureaucracies that have been built throughout these last 400 years. Now, the Gate 40 then asks a hard question, and it says, is this effort still worth it? And increasingly, the answer is no, not in the old way. So it's an opening for us to create something new. So we have this channel here, right? The North Node here at the Gate 37, which is on the emotional center, the solar plexus, which is the center that will be taking the biggest change in the evolutionary leap that occurs in 2027. And that evolutionary leap, while we will all feel it, it will primarily focus on the newborns, right? The people that are new coming in, being born from 2027 onward. They'll really carry the torch of this whole new global cycle that is just in the offing here. Now, when we look at the North Node at the Gate 37, this is what we're learning, right? We're learning more about and needing to learn and move in this direction. And peace is pointing us to a new direction, right? The Gate of Peace. And the Gate 37 isn't peace as in, oh, everything is fine. It's peace born of mutual care. It's emotional safety and it's belonging. And you see a lot of the things that are going on are this, kind of reverb of groups that have been marginalized, and how, the marginalized wanting to move back into the center, right? Wanting to become and belong, right? The belonging piece. Now, the Gate 37 teaches us that this is about chosen family over forced loyalty. And, we see certain people out there in the world that demand loyalty and ask you to line up behind them, no questions asked, and do what it is they want you to do. And if you don't, you somehow get revenged, right? Revenge is huge as a theme out there at least in the United States. I'm sure it is like that in other countries around the world. But you only need to look at Minnesota right now to see the effects of what someone can do against a state that did not support their election. Now, this gate, besides teaching family over forced loyalty, also teaches us that agreements that are emotional, or agreements are meant to be emotional, not just transactional, right? If there's no feeling in the agreement, it falls flat. And then also that community, family, tribe, nation is built on presence, not obligation. So Gate 37 that we're moving toward only works when Gate 40 is honored, right? When we honor the fact that we have to be, ready and willing to support people, can we come to peace. We don't get true peace without rest, right? If we're not filled up in our cups, right? If our cups are empty, we don't have space to recharge our batteries. And you don't get community without reciprocity. It means what you give, you also receive, right? Giving and receiving, two ends of the same spectrum. And you don't get belonging if people are depleted. And that's something that's really apparent in the world right now as we are starting to move forward. All right, I'm going to take a pause here, stop sharing my screen, and go back to StreamYard and say good morning to people who are checking in with us this morning. First, I saw Diana Schneider out there this morning. Good morning to you. And good morning, Miss Stell. Good to have you with us. Terry, my sweetheart, good to see you. Patty, good morning. Good to see you. And Teddy as well. And Jacqueline, good to have you with us. Christine Buckingham, good morning. Gayla, good to have you. Julie, good to see you. And she says, I pray you're healing well and I can send you more medicine if needed. I'm actually doing so good. I actually almost, and I shouldn't even say this out loud, my doctor would probably kill me. I almost walked right out of the RV yesterday. I chickened out at the last moment and sat down and bottom bumped at the last step. But I am gaining strength in my leg and my knee does not hurt as bad. There are twinges now because our weather turned cold and frosty and foggy, but I'm really doing well. Thank you so much. Patty, happy here. Me too. So hit the like button, swipe to subscribe. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. And Christine, that's compliance and not loyalty. Julie, I'm glad to hear that. Amy D, so glad you're healing well. Thank you so much. And it's good to have all of you here with us today. And I really do have so much I want to share with you today. And I forgot there's another important piece. So you may see me later in a video that I'll put out about the new Human Design Week. But I thought this was really important because we missed this when I originally hurt myself. All right, so now let's look at this bigger picture and why this really matters to us. Why do you care about the nodes shifting? And the reason being is as we approach 2027 and the end of the planning and administration cycle, the old agreements are failing. And they're failing faster than the new ones are fully forming, right? So we have this almost feeling of free fall, but without any structure yet about what the new will look like, right? I felt this very keenly toward the end of the year with the whole changing of, whether or not they were going to support the ACA medical insurance thing. And if not, what was next and what was going to happen in between? How were people going to, get supported medically in between? And this is why this nodal shift matters so much, because we're in a bridge period. And the bridge is between the old systems and the emerging systems. We're not really in either yet, right? Everything over here is crumbling, but yet over here, nothing's really built yet. It's almost like a bridge collapse, right? Where now you don't have access to the other side. The old bridge is collapsed, but it's still sitting there, right? And you've got to clean all that out before you can build up the new. That's kind of where we are. We're in a bridge period between obligation and choice. What are we have to be able to choose our future. And we're in a bridge period between survival-based structures and ones that are really built on relationships, that are relational, where we take care of one another. So we're learning collectively that community can no longer be built on sacrifice alone. It has to be built on something else, something newer, something more inclusive. So as we move through this nodal cycle, which, by the way, lasts until May 13th, so it's several months, here's the reflection I kind of want to leave you with. Where are you still showing up in your life out of obligation rather than alignment, right? What are you doing or supporting because you feel obligated to do so, and not because it's really the choice that you would rather make from an alignment perspective? Where has the contract changed, but you're still honoring the old terms, right? Because that channel 30 and 3740 has a lot to do with contracts and agreements. And what kind of community would actually restore you and not drain you, right? As you look out across your life and the things that you're a part of, what feels restorative versus what feels draining? And if it's feeling draining, what's keeping you held to it? Because likely it's obligation, which is also having to shift here. Now, this nodal shift doesn't promise ease. I don't want you to think that, we're all going through some kind of 400-year cycle of ease, but it does promise truth. And the truth is about what can no longer be held up, what can no longer hold its own, can no longer be supported. And from that truth, something new can begin to take shape. And until we really face it, and you see, as things are crumbling in our outer world, we're having to face it. We're having to face it. And yet, you will also be personally changed by this, not only the global cycle shifting, but by this 4037 that takes over for the next 5 months. And especially if you have gate 37, well, everybody has gate 37 and gate 40 in their human design, okay? But if you have the full channel defined already, or if you have something sitting at the gate 40 and something at the gate 37, then you already have planetary energy there. So you're already familiar with this energy, but now you're adding the nodes to it, which brings more urgency to what is shifting, okay? Now, before I go on, I want to show you guys something, because I don't know that I've ever shared this. And for some of you that are already familiar with human design, this may be something you already know about. But for others of you, this may be new. And I want to show you a human design mandala. And I ripped this out of out of this book called The Book of Lines by Ketan Parkin, and it's a very awesome tool for me. I periodically pull it out and look at this because it shows us sort of, you know how the astrology wheel shows you the wheel and how the planets move around the wheel. Well, this particular chart shows us how all of the gates and channels are related to one another. So when we look at the North Node, let's say, well, first of all, in the middle here, you see the human design chart, right? This is what the actual map looks like of your own human design energy. This one isn't mapped as, for any one person. It's just a sample map. And I just outlined here where the South Node is at gate 40 and where the North Node is at gate 37. But next, you see the different zodiac signs moving around this inner wheel. And that tells you, so if we are in Capricorn energy, which is right here, you see that there's a shift that happens. This line right here separates Sagittarius from Capricorn. So we enter Capricorn in gate 10, and then it moves around counterclockwise, just like the astrology chart does, through the sign of Capricorn. And then you see the next dividing line that takes us into Aquarius, okay? Now, the nodes have been sitting in the Pisces-Virgo axis. So here we have Pisces, and on the opposite side is Virgo. So we see now we've moved out of the gate 63, 64, that was our nodal axis, and we've now moved to the gate 37 and 40. So to look at this, you see that the cross of planning, which has been activated since the early 1600s or mid 1600s, is now shifting. And when it shifts, it'll shift into the 55 and the 59. And the gate 55 is called the spirit of abundance. So we move out of this very agreement-oriented, credit debt heavy, bargain contract-oriented energy into one that is about the abundance through spirit. So I just wanted to show you that because this gives you a very different view of human design. And by the way, on the outer ring here, you see the I Ching symbol for each one of those gates, for those of you who are interested in the I Ching. Now, I didn't mean to confuse anybody here, right? Don't get confused. Just this kind of gives us this bigger picture of how things are shifting through our human design. All right. I'm going to stop that. And if you have questions about that, please feel free to ask. Okay, so where are we now? So the shift for you personally. So now if you are someone who's carrying planetary energy at the gates 37 or 40, or the whole channel, like I have that whole channel defined, then your nodal shift doesn't necessarily introduce it's not necessarily new to you. The energy itself of this channel of agreements, community, family, bargains isn't new. Oh, it's also called sometimes the channel of marriage. I think I did say that. But at any rate, this is activating what you already carry, adding new energy to it. So in my own chart, the gate 40 has the moon, my design North Node, and my Pluto. Both sides of my Pluto sit at this gate 40. And the 37 is my Chiron and Mercury. And that channel already defined in my chart is different because now the nodes are sitting there. So it brings a sense of urgency to that for me to make these changes in my life. Thus, my whole knee injury now makes perfect sense to me. That happened on the 17th, and it was on the 23rd, the nodes shifted, right? It was almost a forced take a look at the agreements, take a look at what you're trying to uphold versus what would be sustainable for you to uphold, because I was exhausting myself. I was burning out. So now I've had this opportunity to reframe how I work. Now, for those of you who also have this channel, it might not have been as dramatic for you as it was for me, but maybe it was. And now you've got the nodes sitting here at either the north node or the south node, depending on what gates you have defined there. And you'll have to take a look at what are the planets that defined them in the first place. And now how does the urgency of the nodal shift start to change your life, change your decisions, and change the agreements that you enter into? Because that's a big deal, right? That is a big deal. Now, for those of you who have nothing sitting there, right? If you don't have anything at gate 37 or 40, then this is going to be new energy coming in. This may feel a little bit different for you, right? It suddenly maybe you find yourself having to be responsible for the agreements or making new agreements. You may really have to define what obligation is doing to you in your life. You may find that you feel a little overextended during this period of time, suddenly, like out of the blue. And this isn't a time for you to take on more, right? This will be really a time for you to reevaluate what it is that you are getting into in terms of agreements. What agreements are you making? What communities are you entering, right? So it'll be a big deal for all of us, but just a little bit different for those of us who have any of that defined versus those people who have nothing defined there. And I would say, of all the times in the world that you could get a reading about your human design, this is a great time to do that, right? To really evaluate before you start making agreements in the new year, right? Before you start planning on doing certain things, to really see how is this playing out in my own chart, right? Because this is 5 months of this year that this channel will be identified in the chart, linking your solar plexus to your will center. And remember, 78% of you out there do not have the will center defined, but now suddenly you do. And you might find yourself using willpower to get things done or using emotional energy incorrectly. And you need to know, well, how am I designed to use those energies in the correct way? Okay. So definitely look it up. Call me if you need to. Email me. Sign up for a human design reading. It's a great time. Now, I don't want you to think about this as anybody checking out, like just saying, F that, I'm not doing that anymore, because that's not it either. It's really you withdrawing your consent from broken agreements or agreements that no longer sustain you. And the question for you, especially if you have the gate 40 defined, is what actually restores me now? And for those of you who are newly getting a look at the gate 40, you may also be having to ask yourself the question, by entering into XYZ agreement, how is that going to affect my body, my soul, right? My mental awareness, my physicality, my emotions, right? Having to ask that question. Now, if you have the gate 37 defined, the gate of peace, you're already wired for emotional connection and for loyalty and holding people together in a family, creating a sense of family wherever you go. I would like to think of you all, because I have that 4037, including the gate 37, that you are all my family. And I remember when my son Brian died, this was almost 4.5 years ago now, this sense of needing to hold our family together, because so many times, a death in a youngster or, a suicide such as Brian's can tear a family apart. And one of the very first things that I said was, this doesn't break us. This brings us together. And I held that agreement. I'm still holding that agreement that we are holding together in this. So it's a very powerful gate for creating the sense of belonging and family and heart centeredness, right? The heart, the emotional belonging. Now, with the North Node here in your chart, you're being asked to evolve how you do that. How do you keep the peace at all costs? And some of you out there, we've had conversations that about how it is that you, as a peacemaker, go too far, right? That your diplomacy skills are par none, but you go too far with that, right? Sacrificing yourself even. And this is going to be a place that you can no longer sustain this, right? This time, you will no longer be able to sustain this. So it's about choosing a community that chooses you back, right? You're choosing who you want to be with. You're letting go of the emotional labor that isn't seen or valued in your relationships, redefining what family, in quotes, family truly means. Because sometimes it's not your blood family, right? Sometimes it's the family you choose, right? The groups of people that really support you. So gate 37 in all of this is really about learning peace in that peace without honesty isn't peace at all, right? Just placating and keeping the peace for the sake of peace doesn't support anything. Now, if you have the full 3740 channel defined, you're already carrying the channel of community. So you're already natural providers and you're community anchors. And maybe you're the ones who hold together things behind the scenes, right? You get behind the scenes and you're holding everything together. But as this planning cycle winds down and there becomes this huge change, a shift in the axis of destiny and karma, you're being asked to update your operating system, right? How do you operate? Not by abandoning community, that isn't the way, but by changing the terms of engagement, the rules of the road. And that can be you redefining what you will and will not give. And it could be stepping out of roles that depended on you being exhausted, right? And building smaller, truer circles rather than large ones that create more obligation. You're not losing your purpose, but you are being asked to carry it differently. And if you are part of the group out there that is undefined in this area, this nodal change shifts in a way that creates a learning curve for you all. And a pressure point, even. You may feel pressured about what you are doing within your communities and what agreements that you will make. It may be a mirror to you of what's healthy in your relationships, which versus what isn't. And you may feel more sensitive to group dynamics now and fairness and reciprocity and how are things, in balance. And it may be more sensitive to emotional contracts that you've gotten involved with that you didn't realize you were actually a part of, where you didn't really agree to be a part of it, but somehow you got emotionally drawn in. And this is where your discernment will grow over the next 5 months, to be sure, but also shifting even after the nodes are here. Remember, this is shifting next year into a completely different energy. So this is like time to practice what it would look like in a new world, to be there in a sense of belonging and community without obligation, without exhausting yourself. All right. It's huge. So, all right. Let's move on because time-wise, it's already 8:30. I cannot believe how time flies here. So I want to go now into something that's happening tomorrow, and that is Venus entering Aquarius. And, Venus entering Aquarius, so remember these planets, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Mars, they'd all been traveling together in Capricorn, forming a very powerful stellium of planets, right? A grouping that was really identifying Capricornian themes. Well, now the first planet has moved out, will move out tomorrow of the sign of Capricorn and into Aquarius. And who does she meet immediately after moving into Aquarius? Is Pluto, right? So we have the planet Venus, our money, our values, our self-worth, our finances, the economy, right away, boom, moving into the Pluto, planet of transformation, of power struggles, of the biggest changes on the earth at this moment. It is almost like a values reckoning coming up for us, right? Are we going to live from our values or are we going to cower in the shadows kind of thing? And as she moves into this energy, it's not light or casual anymore, right? It's not that she's uncomfortable in Aquarius, but it's almost like the realities of unsustainable behaviors kind of just like booms, hits her right in the forehead. And Venus tells us what we value. In your own chart, Venus is going to point to what it is that you value. Pluto tells us what must change, whether we are ready for it or not. So the first of these planets moving into and colliding with Pluto are going to bring up some changes in or questioning of our values. And I mean, when Venus meets Pluto, we don't just talk about values, right? This is where we're confronted by them. And in the USA, you only need to look to Minnesota right now for the confrontation of values that is occurring. And I don't know what that means and where that goes and how that plays out. But it does seem like a flashpoint, a turning point, a pivot point in our collective destiny, right? Doesn't it have that kind of air of destiny about it? Now, Venus in Aquarius shifts the tone of her values reckoning, right? It's future facing. In Capricorn, it was all about the traditions and what's current and what's been built upon the past. But as we get into Aquarius, it's now future. What do we look like in the future? If we continue to allow the madness things that are going on in the state of Minnesota or any of the other states where, you know, immigration officials are running like free to do whatever it is they want with people, what does that mean for our society, right? How does that live with our values? Does it live with our values, right? We might have to ask that question. So she'll be asking us questions like, what kind of relationships actually support freedom? And what have we confused loyalty with? Or where have we confused loyalty with stagnation, right? What's old? What values belong to the future, right? What do we want to take with us to the forward in the forward moving of time? So Venus is less sentimental in Aquarius. She's much more discerning in Aquarian energy. She's interested in authenticity over approval. She's not going to do things just because everybody else wants her to do it. She's more interested in alignment over tradition and truth over comfort, right? So she sees things a little bit more objectively in Aquarius. So seeing our values objectively, our money objectively, our worth objectively. And that already marks a shift, if you look at the human design aspect of everything, from the old gate 40 style obligation energies, right? So it's like the other planets are also supportive of this particular change. And I just want to say this right now, because it's not only Venus. Soon we're going to follow with the sun, and then we're going to follow with Mars, and then we're going to follow with Mercury, all moving one after the other until the stellium lands in Aquarian energy. So the things that have been being, a slippery slope here, tolerated or accepted by the old governmental bodies is slipping and moving forward into the future, right? What is it that we're going to build for ourselves as we move forward? Now enter Pluto, because not only is Venus going to cross Pluto, the Sun and Mars and Mercury are all going to pass over Pluto when they get into Aquarius. In fact, you know, already you can feel this in the new moon. When we get to that today, you're going to see how this is already playing out. Pluto isn't going to let Venus just stay theoretical in her concept of what comes into the future. And this can really show up as power dynamics that become very obvious. Where's the struggle between power centers? The financial realities that really demand our honesty, looking at our budgets, looking at our income and our outgo. Attractions that are intensifying or dissolving. And by attractions, I mean relationships, right? Interpersonal relationships. And where are our values clashing personally and collectively? Where's this clash in values? And where can we find the common ground? Eventually, we'll have to look for the common ground here, right? Pluto strips away whatever's false and asks the question. The conjunction of Venus when she gets to Pluto is going to be about, what are you investing in and why? What are you investing your time, your resources, your money, your energy into, and why? It doesn't make sense. Does it hold true? So time, money, energy, loyalty, emotional labor, None of that is going to escape Pluto's gaze once Venus gets there. And anything, when we talk about orbs in astrology, we talk about how close a planet has to be to another one to be effective in what's happening. For Pluto, we give him 15 degrees orb. So we've already been involved in this. We're just now going to see it intensify before it wanes, right? So we have still a bit of time for this values reassessment thing that's going on. Now, the collective themes, right? So those were not necessarily personal, but the bigger collective themes. This Venus-Pluto conjunction will expose who holds the power in communities and how is it that they're holding the power. Is it corrupt? Is it aligned? Is it stagnant? Who benefits from the systems? And how do we make sure the people that we intended to benefit are the ones that benefit? And who pays the real cost? Who's really picking up the tab for everything that's going on? And this is where we're going to see cracks in our social agreements, right? Venus, she's going to show us quite plainly, and especially when she connects with Pluto, what the pushback will be about in manipulation type things, behaviors, resistance by the people to being managed rather than being respected. And it's not chaos necessarily, although it kind of looks like chaos out there. It's more of a revelation. This is kind of revelatory. Pluto doesn't destroy values. So he's not out there with Venus to destroy what you value, but he reveals which ones are already dead and which ones are worth carrying forward, right? It's really a clarity type thing. Now, over the next several days, and I mean several days, maybe even the rest of this month and into next month, pay attention to the strong emotional reactions that either you or others around you have about fairness and freedom. And maybe receive sudden clarity around what you've been compromising too much of yourself in your life, and your relationship issues and your money, because those conversations feel unavoidable right now. I have a friend that we've been chatting back and forth. It just seems like piled on after piled on, issues around money, expenses and things like that. It's been crucial for a lot of people, critical almost. And it's intensifying, but it intensifies until we see it clearly, right? Until we see the error of our ways or what our thinking has been out of alignment, that kind of thing. Now, this isn't about burning bridges. It's not really about destruction so much as it's about understanding the power dynamics that are at play in your personal relationships. And notice how Venus moving into Aquarius and coming into that conjunction with Pluto fits with everything we've already talked about today with the nodal shift. The nodes are dissolving those old community contracts that we've held, the agreements and things like that. Venus and Pluto are questioning what we truly value. And just ahead of us, the Capricorn New Moon. And that one asks us to choose what we're willing to build for the long term with integrity, right? That has to be the underpinning to everything. And this is not easy energy by any means, right? So that's why it feels so, why we can be very anxious at this time or feel very much like this is a crucial, critical turning point that we've come to. But it is honest. And honesty is what makes the future possible. If we can't face those shadows, we can't build a better future for us, for our children, for our children's children. So this is imperative. This has a lot of bang involved in it. All right. Let's see. Going back to questions, people, mini meetings coming up for Tamara. Good morning to you about possible collaborations. Make sure those collaborations feel good to you, that they're not you sacrificing just so you can be a part of the group or a part of that collab. Because so many times we will do that because we feel like if I don't take this opportunity, another one won't come. What is that? FOMO, fear of missing out. Don't do it. Don't allow yourself to do it. If you have a reason that it feels not right, likely it's not right. And if it leads to more obligation, it's probably not right, Tamara. So good. The perfect timing for you. Christine, I have heart and will defined. Solar plexus is open. So this might hit you very emotionally because you're taking in the emotional energy from everybody around you. So as others are grappling with the intensity of these transits and this nodal shift, you may really be feeling it within your own self because you're feeling other people's emotions. You have to sort through what's yours and what's not yours. Julie, that makes sense. Janet, I'm being tested by God at the moment. No, honey, you're not being tested by God. No loving being would ever affect a test on you. You're testing yourself, right? You are the being that's in control of your experience. So what is the test, right? What is it that you're trying to square within yourself, Julie? Right? What is it that you are facing that you need to really work through on a level that you can pass the test, right? This isn't, there's no outside being that is, dumping on you. That just isn't true, right? That gives your power away. That's you almost abdicating your own responsibility for passing your own tests, right? It's you going into your finals and in college without ever opening the textbook to see what it was you were studying. Okay, so please be kind to yourself. You are the one that's being tested by you, by your own, being. It's not somebody dumping on you. Okay, facts. Yes. Okay, no more self-abandonment. Oh my God, Christine, why is that important? Because I am working on a program for people, and I don't want to say too much about this because it's still in my very early stages of finding sanctuary within the self and not participating in self-abandonment. I love it that you brought that up. But she says she also has natal Venus in Aquarius, Chiron too. I have natal Jupiter in Aquarius, and my natal South Node is in Aquarius. Oh my gosh, this is all so very right on point. Jackie, I have to rewatch, was hit with a Mercury-Uranus moment. Got it. God help us. It's a Crispus Attucks moment just happening. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's been crazy. I wish I had my daily chart. Can't wait for the webinar. Tina, good morning to you. Please hit the like button, everybody, and share this video with everybody else. And TD Hawk, Tamara, thank you. Terry, morning, everybody. Okay, got it. Anybody else with a question? No, I don't see one. Okay, so let's move on to the new moon before I run out of time here this morning, because this is a fascinating new moon. And I didn't realize how fascinating till I started really breaking it down yesterday and looking at the chart. So, this is a Capricorn new moon, and I really wanted to kind of title this Alignment, Authority, and the Architecture of the Future, because I feel like that's kind of where we are with this particular new moon. Now, this new moon occurs, let's see, it's on Sunday morning. Wrong. There we go. It is on Sunday, January 18th at 2:53 p.m. East Coast time. That makes it at 11:53 a.m. for those of us on the West Coast. So it's a daytime new moon. Connect with it consciously, right? You can connect with this. And the sun and the moon are meeting at 28 degrees of Capricorn. And they happen to also be, if you see over here on the upper right side where I have it highlighted in yellow, that's the moon, the sun, Mercury and Mars, all in a conjunction in the sign of Capricorn. And by Sunday's new moon, Venus already has moved 1.5 degrees into the sign of Aquarius and is about to bump into Pluto. So I kind of want to group all of these things together. Now, let's talk about Capricorn first, because these are late degrees of Capricorn, which means this is the end of the cycle Capricorn, right? This matters to us because Capricorn is about structure and responsibility and authority, what holds weight over time, what really stands the test of time even. But at these degrees, Capricorn isn't necessarily asking us, how do we build? It's asking, what is still worthy of bringing forward into the future? So is it worthy? Does it stand that test of time? Now, with Mercury and Mars conjunct in this area, also conjunct the new moon, it's not passive. This isn't a passive new moon. This is about clear thinking that's paired with decisive action. It is conversations that lead to commitment, to holding the conversations that are so important right now, to getting clarity about your next steps, choices that can no longer be postponed, right? Mars adds that urgency. Mercury adds some clarity here. Mercury thinks very logically in the sign of Capricorn. And together, Mars and Mercury say decide and take responsibility for the consequences. And it's not saying that, to thrust yourself out there in the world in some new way, but decide what direction that you want to move in and then begin to build the foundation for that move. Now, this is not emotional decision making either. This is sober. It is more restrained than that. It's measured. It's also intentional. So this feels like a very intentionally creative new moon that we are faced with come Sunday. And both of these signs, both Capricorn and Aquarius, are ruled by Saturn, right? Saturn is the traditional ruler of Capricorn and of Aquarius. In the more modern tradition, Saturn gave way to Uranus for rulership over Aquarius, but I still think of Saturn holding sway here because the future is being built, right? There's a very Saturnian quality to that Aquarius energy. And Capricorn and Aquarius, ruled by the sign of needing a foundation, tells us that we still have a lot of work to do, right? That we're actually looking at what is it that we can take forward with us, right? What is it that is worth carrying forward? Now, I also want you to notice, by looking at this blue triangle that I highlighted here, that this new moon is also trine to Uranus in Taurus, right? He retrograded back into Taurus and he's still there. So another earth sign, right? Capricorn earth, Taurus earth. And then I also want you to look at the sextile that is occurring from the new moon to Saturn and Neptune together in a conjunction in Pisces, water. And note the minor grand trine, right? We're getting this grand trine that's been the architecture of our future, that's been enacted since long about June, July of this past year, and is taking us into the future, right? Remember, this holds sway until, what did I say, 2030, something like that, 2028. So boom, here we go. The architecture of the future is upon us, right? So in plain language, it is reactivating this grand trine and minor grand trine that we've been tracking for months. And this is crucial because it means that Uranus and Taurus is changing our thoughts around resources and what we value, how we value, what are our survival systems. Saturn and Neptune in Pisces are dissolving the old structures and dreaming new ones, but responsibly, right? What's sustainable? The Capricorn New Moon now making it real, making it practical and embodied, right? There's something we need to embody here. So this isn't chaotic energy so much as it's construction under pressure. You know, when you have that timeline that says, oh gosh, I have 8 minutes left this morning. Now, what am I going to do, right? How am I going to do this? It's also innovative. Uranus is innovative. It looks to the future naturally. It is vision. Our vision, Neptune holds our vision for the future, our spiritual selves. Saturn holds the responsibility, the new architecture of reality. What are the bones of our future going to be? And it doesn't happen overnight. So in your own personal life, your new moon is happening in Capricorn. And where is Capricorn in your chart? What house is it in? Right? In my own chart, Capricorn is on the 7th house, and it happens to be, this new moon is absolutely conjunct my natal Saturn, and Mercury and Mars are in an opposition to my natal ascendant. This is personal. So I'm sure that these changes that I've been feeling, and the reason I felt really called to talk about all of this in this way this morning, is partially from those transits. So take a look at your own chart. Where is Capricorn? The new moon doesn't ask you to leap, by the way. This isn't about jumping forward. It's about what are you willing to commit to, right? What's your commitment level? What is the mature response that you have to what's going on in your life? And choose what you're willing to be accountable for. and release the structures that no longer align for you, um, that don't align with who you're becoming or who you want to be. So this is a moment for all of us, for all of you in your own chart, to look at what your earned authority is all about. That's what Capricorn is representing in this new moon. It's not about borrowed authority. It's not about imposed authority, but authority that comes from lived experience. What it is that you've lived through that really counts here. So consider then what you're ready to take responsibility for in your life. And is it, for the long term? What are you, looking at for the long term? Where are you being asked to step into a greater self-authority? And what kind of future do your current choices actually support? And that might be a better way to look at it, because then it can help you decide what to choose now. Right? So this new moon is a little bit more sober or serious, but it's also hopeful, because it tells us the future isn't imaginary anymore. It's being built piece by piece by the choices we make now. And what is it that we want that to do? And remember, we still have this, chaotic destruction stuff still going on. The decay is still there. Now, how do we personalize this new moon? Because, for each one of you, it's hitting you personally. Everyone has Capricorn somewhere, right? Take a look at your chart, see where that Capricorn is sitting by house. Let's say like this, if this were a person, this is 8th house. This is big transformation, life altering changes if this were a person. So if you have something going on in your 8th house that looks like this, then there's big changes afoot. And if this is your 7th house, it's affecting your agreements, it's affecting your relationships, it's affecting how you align in partnershiping and so forth. Let's say you have this in your 1st house. This new moon, if you're a Capricorn rising, this is affecting your personality, who you are at the very fundamental, basic level. Let's say it's in your 4th house. I'm working with someone today who has this, I think, ongoing in her 4th house. This is about home and family and the responsibilities that you feel toward your parents and toward your siblings and toward your family, your community at large. So that's how you personalize this. You look at the house it's in and any planets in your natal chart that it might be impacting, and then ask the question, what are you ready to take responsibility for going forward? Right? What are you ready to do? And that immediately makes this new moon personal for you without requiring any real technical knowledge on your part, other than what does that house represent, right? Now, use life areas instead of houses. Maybe, rather than saying the 10th house, say this is my career sector or my professional life, my authority. How does that look for you, right? Maybe it's better than saying the 10th house, which might sound a little, technical. Your public life might, be another word you could use. So redefining if it's in your 10th house or it's in that career sector, redefining what success actually means for you. If it lands in your home or family realm, right, that would be 4th house, but home or family realm, restructuring what supports you emotionally within your family. Maybe if it activates your relationships, that you make clearer agreements and about your shared responsibility within the relationship. And if it shows up around money or resources, then it's about sustainability, not short-term gain. And if it impacts your health or your energetic self, then it's about pacing yourself for the long haul, right? Not burning yourself out. So you can feel how this lands for you based on the house, but not necessarily thinking of it as a house, but more thinking of it as an area of your life. Now, this is a huge moon, I think. I really looked at this and thought, this is something we needed, really to have in our lives right now. And as we wrap up all of this conversation today, I want really to bring all of this together for us so that we can see that this is a cohesive kind of story. This all makes sense in, some weird sort of way. It's not just like these isolated things happening. They are all, kind of coming together. So if we look at the nodal shift first to the 37 and the 40, it's showing us that the old agreements that we've lived under are around work, around loyalty, and around support are no longer sustainable in the same way. That the longer global cycle that we've been a part of of planning and provision is winding down. And with that comes a reckoning around reciprocity and rest and true community. Where does your true, authentic self lie in relationship? Then Venus meeting Pluto in Aquarius, another big thing that suddenly our values are no longer abstract. Right now, we're being asked to look honestly at where power lives in our relationships, in our finances, in our communities, in our governments, in our nations, in our world, and whether what we're investing in actually reflects who we're becoming. Doesn't really reflect you. And now with the Capricorn New Moon, it's asking us to choose, not impulsively and not emotionally, but deliberately. What is it that you do next? This is about mature commitment for us, deciding what you're willing to carry forward. And just as importantly, what are you ready to release? Because sometimes you can't move forward unless you're ready to release something. The future isn't arriving fully formed. Nope, doesn't happen that way. It's being built through our clear choices and honest boundaries and responsible vision. And as we move ahead into the days, past the new moon, ask yourself, what is it that you are ready to take responsibility for in your own personal life? And in a way that it supports your life and doesn't deplete you. Big question. And not because you should, not because it's expected, but because it's true for you. This is what I desire. This is what I want. And that's how we cross from the old world into the new world. Not by force, but by aligning with what is most important for each one of us. All right. Let's see here. Last questions before I head out. Let me get that out of there. Okay. Hold the ideal. True. Aquarius energy, as we're moving into that, takes the real and moves it into a sense of idealism. Like, in an ideal world, this, but now how do I build that? And Christine, Mars, Capricorn, and part of Fortune, 9th house. There you go. Genetic coding, as I call it. Very good. I love that. And all good wishes to everybody. I am going to pull a card, though. Trying to decide which one wants to call. And I want to say it's the 7 energies. We did this one earlier this week too. Or maybe it was last week. Okay. 1, because I could reach it easily. But 2, because energetically, what do we need to know about this new moon? What do we all need to know energetically about this new moon? And Awakening Genius, card number 29, which by the way is an 11, enlightenment, illusions, being enlightened, and it is Awakening Genius. I like that. Let's see what that means for us for this new moon. Okay, the key concept of the card is the spirit of creative expression, bringing forth new information, birthing knowing that your ideas matter. The ancient Greeks believed that each person had a specific genius that acted like a spirit guide, inspiring you with new ideas to further your evolution as an individual, as well as the evolution of all humanity. You could say that genius is the spirit of creative expression, and when you tune into it, amazing things happen. When your genius awakens, you realize that you do not have to do everything yourself. You have an inspired, dedicated, wise helper on your side. Today, can you imagine cultivating a playful relationship with this extraordinary spirit? If you can, you'll recognize that you don't have to solve every problem with only the knowledge, memories, and experiences that you already have accrued. Your intellect, in this case, serves as a channel for this spirit of genius, and it can filter in new information. How you forge this connection is to get out of your own way and simply allow it to work through you. That's awesome. The word genius comes from the Latin gignere, meaning to bring forth or birth, and shares the same root as the word generate, and you are at this moment about to give birth to a new mode of expression, and a powerful one at that. Commit to partnering with your genius, and only deep satisfaction and success will result. Today is a day when your inspired ideas matter. I think that's a great one to take into this new moon. All right, Awakening Genius, all of you have it. You all are geniuses. Awaken your own personal genius. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you on Monday. Thank you so much. Bye for now.